Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a review of the Isamaya Industrial Palette / Collection. So I don't have everything from the collection, but I do have the palette, the lip gloss and lip lacquer, and the mascara. And I've had these for about a month now, and I've used them quite a lot. And so I definitely have my thoughts formed at this point, because this is an expensive palette with a lot of different textures and finishes in it. So I wanted to play around with it as much as possible before I gave an actual review. So this isn't exactly new. It did come out probably 3-4 months ago. I didn't pick it up at launch, but they had a sale recently, and that's when I was finally like, yes, I'm gonna splurge and get this. And I got these 3 items. I skipped, there was also like a face serum product and a brow lac, and I skipped those, but I did get these, and I have been using them basically non-stop since I got them, so I definitely have my opinions formed. So today I figured I would do a look with this, kind of my go-to look, and describe the textures in it and give you my thoughts on the different formulas in this and if I think it's worth the $115 price tag. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Colin. I am a non-binary Latinx scientist and lover of makeup with a soft spot for indie makeup and colorful makeup. And I have new content every week, so I'd love to have you subscribe. So this is the palette itself. It is a very interesting palette. When I first saw it, I thought of Star Wars Han Solo when he gets frozen, but it's this like latex industrial fetish theme. Everything for this collection was. I really appreciate the brand as a whole for like going all in on their themes. And it is, so this is 14 shades, and I think there's 10 different finishes in here. So there's a lot of different textures and formulas to play with. And I also did get their new palette, the Wild Star palette. I do have a video, a first impression with that up. I'm still playing with that. I haven't used every shade yet, and I want to use them multiple times to really decide. I do plan on doing a video comparing the two of them soon, and then a full review of that palette once I've, formed my thoughts around it. But because it's such an expensive palette, I don't want it to just be a first impression or anything, and I want to see how my opinion changes over time or doesn't change. So real quick, I'll go over some thoughts on the brand itself, which I did cover in my first impression of the new palette. And then I'm gonna put on the lip lacquer and then try out the palette and talk to you about the different formulas and textures. I really appreciate the brand. I think it's very, they just go all in. So the brand is done by Isamaya French. She is a famous makeup artist. She has been working as the creative director for Byredo, and she's worked with Dazed. She did consulting work with Tom Ford Beauty. She's now also working with another famous company, that's not Byredo, I'm forgetting right now. Her style is very much makeup as art, which I really appreciate, because that is what got me into makeup in the first place, was the artistic side of it, was seeing my friends that do drag, seeing drag performances, watching runway shows, or not runway shows, but like runways, and seeing the editorial makeup on them, looking at fashion magazines. That's what got me started in makeup in the first place and interested in it. So I really appreciate that she's taking that creative, artful vibe and aesthetic and just picking very, very specific themes and then just going all in on them. I think, well, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the future, because so far we've had the industrial palette in collection, which is very kink, very fetish, very leather, latex, all of that. And then we had the super camp, kitsch, cowboy, rhinestone collection for Wild Star. So I'm really interested to see what's gonna come next. I have a feeling it's gonna be a lot of like big swings, and I appreciate that. It'll keep us all on our toes. I don't think that it means you have to buy everything, or if you're a fan of her work that you have to buy it just because of that. I am not that kind of person. I don't believe in standing anybody, but I do, if it speaks to you and you're interested in it, I want to, and it also speaks to me and I bought it, I want to know if it's actually worth the money and the effort. So first off is the lip lacquer. I really like this. I do like that these are actual piercings, like these balls come off. And this is the Liplacq Maximizing Lip Serum in Black Veil. I love this. It's a very interesting lip gloss. It kind of gives me the same vibe as the Black Cherry from Clinique. I don't actually own that, but I've seen it on a lot of people. This is more plumping and a little more pigmented, but it's that same kind of like Black Cherry tint of an effect. So this is a plumping lip gloss, but it doesn't sting or burn like some of you. Some really, really burn and are uncomfortable. This, I feel like I'm very aware of my lips for a little bit and then it fades and it just kind of brings out the natural color of my lips so that it looks a little less black than it does when I first put it on. So I'm gonna put it on. It is expensive, and I kind of wish I would have gotten a few because I really like the formula and I don't want to have to pay, you know, like $30 again to get it. But it's got a nice doe foot. I like this kind of flat applicator. And then when I put it on, you can see it looks pretty much black, but like a sheer black. It's very grungy. I really appreciate that. I appreciate a grungy aesthetic. It's something I've always liked. So you can see when I first put it on, it does look pretty black. And I would say as it starts to do its effect and plump, you'll see a little less black and you'll see some more of the red of my lips come through. And it just becomes a really interesting shade and I really appreciate it. It's not like a daily color for me, although it could be for some people, but especially because of the cost. But when I want this vibe, very happy I have it. And then for the palette. When I first saw this, I thought of Han Solo in Star Wars when he gets frozen. That's the vibe I immediately thought of, but it does have a really interesting effect of someone pushing through latex, kind of like horror movie when you see someone like coming through a wall. Really like this. It does make it a little harder to store because it's got, you know, a person on it. So I just have it sitting on a shelf like this. You could also probably have it like this, but you can't, you know, fit it like a book like a lot of palettes. And then the shade names are on the back. They're all very fitting for the palette. So you've got fetish, leather, belt, whip, heat, machine. You've got very fitting, like they went all in on this theme. I've used all of the shades in here now at least once, most of them over and over. Although it doesn't really look like it because I'm pretty gentle with palettes generally. And here is the color story. It's very grungy. I'm sure you've all seen this before. Isamaya has a really great video describing the shades and swatching them and talking about why she picked those shades. There's a lot of them that are more sheer. So this shade is a sheer. This is the shade Sweat, I believe. Yes, this is the shade Sweat. It looks white, but it is like a shiny, wet lilac effect. Really pretty. These two are both also a sheer wet effect. So this is more green and this is more champagne sparkly. This green up here has kind of a sheer base to it, so it's not overly pigmented. This one also has a bit of a shift and a sheer base. This copper, pretty full opacity. This one, pretty opaque. I can speak, I have degrees. But this is one of the ones I've used the most, even though it doesn't really look like it. It does have these two putty shades. This one's kind of black with blue sparkle, and this one's plain black. And then it's got two really foiled shades and this really intense green. So I'm gonna do one of my go-to eyes, but I'll also talk about some of my other favorite looks that I've done with this. This acid green, beautiful. I also really like this as just a wash. I will say some people have complained about hard pan, especially like Cannelli's Postin. Hated the palette and got hard pan in a lot of shades like this one. I don't really have any hard pan, although I mostly use a brush. I generally use a Refer 21 brush and picks up the shadow fine. I get that wash of sparkle like I want, that wet effect. Don't get any hard pan. I've used my finger with all of them as well. I don't have any issue, and if you do, you can always use a little tape to fix it, but I don't think I just see hard pan. I saw someone else on Instagram complain that they had a lot of hard pan, but they're also someone that does a lot of swatches. And I feel like that's something that happens like even with Odin's eye palettes and a lot of palettes I've used, because the oil in your fingers reacts to the shadow, and that's what creates it. So when you're swatching things all the time, it's bound to happen with a lot of formulas, regardless of the price point. So I'm gonna go in and do it in a look on just one eye, and then I'll copy it over off camera just to save time, but I'm gonna describe some of the textures between things, because I can't really say, like some palettes you can say, here, these 5 are shimmers, these 5 are mattes. I think the matte formula is, because everything in here is basically a different formula. So my go-to look with this has been more bronze green tones. And then when I want something really bright and metallic, I'll use one of these with the black. I do like the black a lot. And I'll do that maybe on the back of my hand so you can see that kind of effect. So you can start with the black. It is a putty shade, and I think my favorite brush to use it is, where is it? Is this. This is a pencil brush from Refer. This is the 26. It's a big pencil brush, and it makes a perfect like placement, but it's big enough that I can place it in the shape I want and then also blend it out a little. And I might use that a bit, but I'm gonna start with the shade. So I'm gonna start with the shade Cuprum, I believe, because this is Initiator, so that should be Cuprum. It is this really beautiful bronze shade. It's a good one and done. A lot of this is good one and done shades, which I appreciate. And you can see it's this really interesting bronze with gold sparkle, and I can pick it up on this fluffy brush, and you can see the sparkle there. I'm gonna place that right here. And I do have a little bit of the Urban Decay primer down, but you can see it. This is a Refer 1. This is one of my favorite brushes for a one and done kind of shade or look. But you can see I'm packing it down. I have an eyelash. And there's definitely a sheen and a sparkle. It's not a satin, but I can still blend the edges really nicely and use it as the matte and a shimmer. So as I blend it a little bit, you can see right here, it doesn't really look sparkly or anything. It looks like I just have a brown matte down, but then from here downward where I patted it down, there is a lot of gold sparkle that I hope is showing up. And I use this a lot. It's what I start with most looks with, but some days I just literally put this all over. And I'm surprised I don't have a bigger dent in this because I use it so much. And then to kind of show you the difference between like this shade, which is a little more opaque, and this shade, which is a little more sheer, I'll pick up this more sheer, dark, grungy green. You can see it's got a bit of a shine to it. And as I put that over the lid, I get like a wash of green bronze, I would say. So you can see that it's kind of dark. Some people might not want that all over. I mean, you could have certainly put something brighter over it. But it's also got that gold speckle in it, so it blends into this one really well. I'm just gonna put that all over the lid so you can kind of see it. It's like bronze with a green, but you can see it's kind of a wash of color for that first layer, and then now that I've got 2 layers, it's much more opaque, it's really shiny, really interesting formula. And then this is a darker green. This is a little more bronze. So I'm gonna take this like darker kind of olivey tone, olivey metallic, put that right here. So you can see this is more bronze with gold. This is definitely more olive. I could have done this without the brown. I'm kind of all covering it up at this point, but It's got lots of subtle variation in tone and texture and color, which I really appreciate. But if you don't like that, if you don't like playing with texture, you're not gonna like this palette. I will say, from my first impression, first couple impressions, the new palette is very different. So if you hated that this was a lot of different textures and formulas and really dark and grungy, the new palette is very different so far. So it's not, doesn't seem like the same, it seems like the same quality, but very different formulas. And I really like, this is something that I've worn multiple days now. This kind of effect on the eyes. Wet, shiny, it's a little more green over here, a little more brassy over here, but it just looks really interesting. I've done this without the brown as well, works fine. I've done it with starting with the black, and it just makes it a little darker, smokier. Really, really like these though. And then just to brighten it up a little bit, I'll go into this shade here, Fetish. And you can see it's much brighter. And it adds much more of an antique gold effect. And these all just layer together. So if you're a fan of different textures and layering shadows for different effects, I think you'll really enjoy this palette and these formulas. But if you're not someone that wants to play around with textures and layering, this is not for you. But enough of the shades, like this shade, like there's enough here that you can either do a sheer wash of color all over or one of these all over and do a one and done. You don't have to layer a bunch. It just kind of lends itself to that. And then I'm gonna grab both two of the wet effect shades so you can kind of see those. So this is the more champagne one, and you can see I've made a dent in it a lot because I've used this so much. And it definitely, I'm gonna just brush that kind of like up here on my brow bone so you can see it. And you can see it just adds a sheer wash, there's no R there, wash of like champagne sparkle. There's literally no base color to it. I would say this color, and this color don't really have a base. And like these three have like a semi-sheer base. So if you really like that wet effect of just sparkle, it really does that well. I have other shades like that, so I didn't need to buy it for that, but I do really appreciate those three in here. And then I'll pick up the more green version of that and put that right here. So you can see there's like that really bright green color. It's kind of this color, but as a wash of sparkle instead of an opaque. And it really brightens and catches the light. When the light hits it, it looks really interesting. And then just to show you, I'll pick up a little bit of the black putty shade. And you can kind of see, it feels like I'm painting with this, which is something I appreciate, especially with this putty shade. There's definitely an artistic, like, painterly quality to this. You can see it layers nicely on these. You can start with this and use it as a base because it's that putty texture, or you can go in after, like I just did, just to add a little bit of smoke. So I'm gonna go repeat this in the other eye, and then I'm gonna show you a couple swatches and other things as I think about the formulas, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I just copied everything on this eye because I'm gonna wear this the rest of the day. And this, I've done, my daily look has generally been picking 2 shades, not 5. But, so my goal of showing you my daily look didn't really work out. But you can, it doesn't necessarily look like I've done 5 shades, but in a really interesting way, they've all kind of melted together. I also really appreciate that while there is a lot of sparkle and a lot of different texture, because they are a really like thick emollient kind of feeling to them, there's zero fallout. Like I have zero fallout anywhere. So that is another thing I really like from this. Normally dark, sparkly, special shades tend to, especially if you try to blend them, you're just gonna have fallout all over, and I never get fallout with this. So that is another really nice perk of these formulas. They're really user-friendly in my experience. I will try to insert, when I'm all done, a clip so you can kind of see the sparkle. I can't use my phone as a flashlight to show it off because I film with my phone. And then you can see my lips. The blackness has kind of faded and the redness of my lips has come through. I've also had some water to drink, but looks really nice, really natural. I would say it looks a little darker. It's like a My Lips but better, but darker, like a blacky. There's like a black haze over them. But I will put a little bit more on just to kind of intensify. That was one layer. If you layer it up more, you get more of the dark color of it. And now I'm gonna put on the mascara. So this is the Rubberlash. It's like a 30-something mascara. I definitely didn't pay that. I paid like $27 with tax. So not too bad, especially considering my go-to mascara other than this is Pat McGrath, which is like 20-something, 25. So I think, especially at a discount, 100% worth it. But even still, I like this enough I would probably still pay it full price for it. I appreciate the squishy rubber texture of this. I appreciate the like piercing on here. I've seen people on YouTube say that they don't like the piercing, that they've taken it off because it was hard to use with it there. I don't have a problem with it, but I also have giant hands. So that's, you know, I'm a large human, so that definitely makes a difference. If you have really petite hands, it might be kind of hard. But it's a really really nice formula. I like this wand a lot. Part of what I like is the wand. It's long, skinny. It's got like a really interesting textural design to it. So it really separates the lashes. I have her new mascara and it's, I think, the same formula, but a very different brush. And I like both. I like the formula in both. I like the way they both look, but I like this wand more. It really, I normally wear one layer of mascara, that's it. And it adds a lot of length and really separates them, really defines them. They look really nice. And I can do more and have really bold, dramatic lashes, but it's not clumpy or gross. But if you layered it like 3 layers, you would probably get a little bit more of a clumpy lash. I just hate the way that looks on me and on most people actually. But I think it's a really spectacular formula. My go-to has been Pat McGrath, and I still really love that. This is like just a little more special, and just my lashes look so good and last all day, no smudging, no issues. It's just great. So I'm gonna curl my lashes and put some of that on real quick. So this is supposed to be self-curling. I don't notice an effect of that, but it does hold my curl better than pretty much any other mascara I've used. I have very straight lashes that do not hold a curl. So if you have more cooperative lashes, the self-curling aspect of this and the shape of the wand that's supposed to do that might work for you. It just does not for me. But you can see one good coat. They're long, they're separated. I love the way this looks. So I'm gonna do the other eye and my bottom lash real quick. Okay, so I did want to show off a couple of the shades I didn't wear. So like this green, this copper, and this really beautiful chunky shade. I did want to show, so like this is the black with blue in it. You can see it just has a bit of a blue shift. It does show up, I think, a little bit better on me because I have an olive undertone. So blue tends to stand out. Blue and greens tend to stand out and look a little different than if you're like pale and pink undertone. But you can see that was one dip. It adds, you know, a nice wash of black. And then a second one, really builds on itself, and you can see that blue sheen. I think this is a really interesting color for like a specific kind of look. This all over the lid, blended out, and then just that, or that with a little one of the other shades. Like, I think, I'm just gonna layer up a bunch on my hand so I can show you what I'm talking about. And then let's grab Sweat, which is the like iridescent lilac shade. You can see it has 0 base, but it just reflects and looks kind of glow in the dark. And I think patting it over that adds that like blue purple shift. It just looks so pretty. And then grabbing this more textured shade. This is Grip. And blending that right here. I'll do a finger swatch for that just because it's a little easier. This one definitely works better. These two work better with the finger. You can see this is a really intense blue silver. This is like a black with pink and bronze and stuff. This one feels a little more textured. This one's a little smoother. But pairing these together with the black and the black and blue, like these, such an interesting like dark smoky eye can be made with these, and then you can have a really bright lid if you want. I just think they're so interesting and so texturally unique. Color-wise, pretty unique as well, but texturally just very, very unique. There's a lot. This is a very different formula. Like, everything is a different formula, but I think the formulas in this are very different from others. And then the other two really bold shades are this copper and this green. And I've worn this green all over the lid. It blends and melts into these shades really beautifully. And so does the copper if you want a little more bright and a little less grungy. So there's the copper. This is, it's like the copper in, I think, Midnight Sun for Pat McGrath, but smoother. That's one of her big shades, so it's a little chunkier, grittier, but it's the same effect, but like in a smoother version. And then this is just that bright lime green. Then I have other stuff that's similar colors, but none that like look like this or feel like this. Okay, so now that I've been rambling forever, I think $115 is a lot. I spent like $80. For $80, I adore this, and I would happily spend $80 again on this, but I think I would still even spend $115 on this. I hope each collection doesn't just like disappear. Like, I hope this isn't limited edition, just disappears forever, because I think it's a really interesting collection. And if I went through these shades, I would rebuy it at full price. That's how much I love this. I think it's really interesting colors and textures. Like, you can get similar colors, and especially some of the like more like this shade or this shade, you can get similar shades to this in singles pretty easily, but they're not going to be this formula. I like this formula more because you can blend it. A lot of indie singles look beautiful on the eye, but you can't blend it. Or if you do, some of the creamier ones you do, they have that black base, and so it just turns black and gray. These you can blend out, and they still retain the color that the base color, the color they're supposed to be, because they don't have an added black base or gray base. They're like, the base is the color, if that makes sense. It's just really interesting. And I think some of the people I've seen complain about it or really disappointed in it seem to be people who swatch a lot or put an emphasis on swatching. Like, I've seen people say it swatches terribly, and I've seen people swatch it and be disappointed in the swatches, but swatches don't matter. I mean, they can matter to you personally. That's a personal thing, but makeup isn't made to be swatched. Makeup is made to be used, and worn. And I think one thing Instagram has definitely done, and to some extent YouTube and social media as a whole, is put a large emphasis on swatching. And I see so many times palettes or shades or things that people are like, oh my God, look at this swatch, it's so intense, it's so beautiful. And then they don't work very well in the eyes, or they look nice in the eye, but they melt away after an hour. Or people are like saying a palette is, I've seen hundreds of times, people say a palette is bad because its swatch is bad. But the palette wasn't produced for you to just swatch it. It was produced to put on your eyes or your face or whatever. It's a very different circumstance, and that's what actually matters. If you only care about swatches, that's fine. Buy the shades that swatch, but you can't say something is objectively bad just because it swatches badly. That's not what it was designed for. So that's my little rant. Hope Mess Tom has used this a lot, has multiple videos on it. They use their fingers a lot. They haven't had any real issues that I've noticed, or that they've said to me. I know other people who have this and they've used their fingers a lot, so I don't think it's just a brush versus finger thing. But I do think putting too much an emphasis on how they look as a swatch and how they perform as a swatch is definitely something I've seen thrown as a negative, when that's just not, I mean, for me, it doesn't matter at all. But if you're thinking about the person who created this, the brands, the marketing team, what it was designed for was not for swatching, it was designed to be used. So it's just something that I have seen a lot lately, and it really bothers me when they're like, well, look how badly it swatches. I'm like, okay, well, put it on your eye. Does it look as bad there? Because it's an eyeshadow. That's what it was made to do. All of that aside, as I've babbled forever, I am really, really loving this. This is definitely one of the best palettes I've used this year. Might be my favorite. I don't know, we'll see when I get to my year-end favorites and actually like sit down with all of them and rank them. But I think this is a really unique collection of formulas and colors, and I have fun every time I use it. And it's one of those things that I just want to keep going back towards. Like, I have other new things that I've gotten that I need to use to review or need to use because I paid money for it, but I just keep grabbing this instead. And I think that says a lot about it. So if you have similar makeup feelings or usage to that, I think you'll really enjoy this if you haven't already gotten it. With that said, it has been out for a few months now, so a lot of people do have it. So if you do have this and you've gotten it and you've used it, I want to know your opinions. Do you hate it? Do you love it? Do you feel indifferent? I really want to know. I've watched pretty much every video that I've seen post. I did a lot of research before buying this because that's how I work. And like I said at the start of the video, comparisons with the new palette will be coming soon. Next week is Thanksgiving, and I don't really care about the holiday itself, but I do spend it with my chosen family and cook and drink and stuff. So I will be cooking and busy. So we'll see when it comes, but a video comparing this, like probably swatch comparisons, formula comparisons to the new palette, and a full review of the new palette will be coming in the next week or so. This is still available, and the new one is still for pre-order and won't ship till the end of December anyway, so, but it is coming. So let me know in the comments below your thoughts, what you think of the brand as a whole. Have you gotten this? Have you tried it? What are your thoughts on it? I really want to hear those opinions. I like to read that stuff. I like to talk with people. So let me know in the comments below. Like I said, I will insert a clip here so you can kind of see that wash of sparkle. But I will insert a clip here that I'll record in a minute when I'm done filming. So you have that as well. But let me know your opinions. As always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.